Hello and welcome, everyone. I am Sarah Snell Cook, your host here at the Credit Union Connection. I am joined today by Catherine Powers. Welcome.
Hello, Sarah. Nice to see you.
Great seeing you as well. And Catherine is the CEO of a company called Constant AI. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and the company?
Yeah, absolutely. I am the founder and CEO of Constant AI, and our focus is to democratize loan servicing automation for all credit unions, small and large. And lately, we've been doing that by enabling this kind of automation. So think about payment skips, deferrals, due date changes, all of those sorts of things that are super complex, require precise rules, read and write to the core, all of those complex bits. And we've been able to push that functionality up through AI chat, AI voice, either our own in the form of Nia, who is our agent, or through our partner API, so that if a credit union already has an agent, say with Eltropy or Posh or others, then it can be consumed that way as well.
Hmm. Tell us a little bit more about Nia.
Yeah, so Nia is the first ever AI skip a pay agent. If a member calls their credit union and Nia is sitting behind that institution, a member can simply say, "Hey, I can't make my loan payment," or "I want to skip my loan payment." And Nia will ask them a couple of questions, go in and grab the rules for the credit union, make sure that member is either approved or denied based upon those rules, and then write everything back to the core. So there's no waiting, there's no applications, no forms to send in, those sorts of things. And we think that's really important because if you request a payment skip, say on a Thursday, but nobody gets around to it till Monday, you could actually fall delinquent and therefore not be eligible for that and then roll into delinquency. And nobody wants that, right? Not good for the
Hmm.
member, not good for the credit union. And I think more importantly, I'm actually behind on the website, but we have upskilled Nia already. So she's not just doing payment skips, rather, she's mimicking a conversation a member would have with like a loan servicing agent, just saying, "I can't make my loan payment." So if they're not eligible for a payment skip because they've already gone 30 days past due, for example, Nia can say, "Well, hey, can you make a partial payment?" And if not, she'll check to see whether they're eligible for a deferment or extension, which is usually a hardship accommodation, and then write that back to the core as well. So it's not like you can't get a payment skip, conversation ends, you hit a denial wall. Rather, our goal is to solve the problem.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It is just rule following, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it's a little more human. So speaking of which, is there a way, like for whatever reason, that a human would want or need to break in to the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, if a member actually wants to talk to a human, they can certainly say, "Please transfer me." That we totally respect that, as
Mm-hmm.
do all contact center as a service companies. Same thing. But there may be something more complex, right? The delinquency is too severe where the kind of support the credit union would provide is not yet automated, or they want to learn more about the situation
Hmm.
before they offer the right solution. So our goal with the automation underneath is just to take those workflows that can be automated, can read and write back and forth to the core and handle that. So let's say 80 to 90% of the cases. But the whole goal behind the use of this technology is to free up credit union staff so they can solve those tougher issues and spend time with members.
Hmm. And yeah, and in speaking, I served on the board of my credit union, and I know we switched to a text solution that would text people when they're behind on their loans. And people seem to be more comfortable with that. I think it's probably less judgment. And so I think automating that can really help the member experience too, because even if they aren't being judged, they probably feel like they are. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a real human experience. Privacy is the product, right? We're all human beings. If you are experiencing a hardship, the last thing you want to do is talk to a stranger about that and then be asked questions about how did this happen and what are your spending habits and all of these sorts of things. So I think the privacy and humanity behind, strange to say, but humanity behind an AI agent, whether it's served up in chat, if you're getting a text saying you're 10 days past due, having that redirect to a chat interface or voice interface to support that fuller conversation and help resolve the challenge is, I think, an incredible step forward, especially for loan servicing teams that have been handling this manually in past.
And you're working with MSU FCU, always known as being ahead of the game. How's that going?
Yeah, they're fantastic partners. And Reseda Group is also an investor in Constant. So they're early adopters of Nia. And also, they are great with spending time with companies like ours to say, to have us help us think about broader applications and roadmap and what are the things we should be thinking about to expand the use cases. So they've been incredible partners. So on the serving a specific institution, they've been great there. We also, on the partner side, have partnered with Eltropy. They've been amazing partners too. And I think helping to prove out this thesis that credit unions that have already deployed their own AI voice or chat agents and having us sit underneath to power that is an approach that makes sense for those credit unions that already have relationships with these established players. So if you think about this, we've separated these two jobs where that I think many AI systems mash together. So the language model's only job is to understand what the member is saying, never actually touches the decision. The actual decision, can this member skip a payment, get a deferral, change their due date, for us runs in this separate deterministic engine. So basically the rule book that always gives the same answer for the same situation. So no improvising, no guessing kind of thing. And we think that that infrastructure separation is really important from a security standpoint as well. So think of it as like pilot and autopilot. The AI pilot is talking to the passenger, calm, conversational, answering questions, but it's not the one flying the plane. It's the autopilot, our decision underneath. So whether it's powering Nia or powering these other voice agents offered by these other companies, it is an infrastructure that is secure from a governance perspective, protecting member information, but more importantly, it democratizes loan servicing automation for anyone. So if you're $100 million institution using Eltropy, for example, we can power that through L2P, or if you're a $13 billion institution, it doesn't really matter to us as long as we're sitting underneath a company like L2P to deliver that.
hmm And you mentioned governance. That's super important right now. And I think talk a little bit about the key points to governance that credit unions should keep in mind when they're discussing AI.
Yeah, I think a lot of the focus is on the front door, right? How do we make sure there's not synthetic fraud? How do we make sure the member is who they say they are? And there are companies like Illuma that are doing a really good job with that, partnering with the Eltropes, Glias, Poshes of the world to make sure that front door is secure. And our focus is once they get through that front door and they're in the house, how do we make sure they only get into the rooms they're allowed to get into? And so that separation, we call it a state machine, but that separation underneath where all of the rules are read exactly like the credit union wants them to read. So same input should generate the same output is how we secure it underneath, and separating those layers from a governance standpoint, I think is important. And we decided to attack this from the infrastructure standpoint. There are others that are doing a
Mhm.
great job doing this from like L2P has a safe AI, right? And so there's transparency with everything. So you can, not speaking about L2P specifically, but all of those companies are making sure that you've got visibility into the conversation, into the transcript, making sure that you have all the layers of security that are necessary, securing the APIs, all of that. I think governance is really important. I saw a report recently that there are more and more chief AI executives being appointed because governance is such a huge thing, right? So deploying these agents is increasing the attack surface. So you've got to
Mhm.
make sure that when you choose a provider, that you're spending time on making sure governance is in place so that whatever actions are being taken are defensible to examiners, are defensible to your internal compliance team.
That was going to be my next question about auditability. So, when an examiner comes in and you've decided to decline a skip a pay or move the member from a skip a pay to deferment, things like that, how does the examiner know you went through, or Nia went through all the right steps?
Yeah, so I'll talk about this just from Nia's perspective versus partners. A few things. One, the transcript is available, the audio recording is available, so you know that person actually said yes or no to the terms and conditions, for example. But
Mm,
underneath, because we've separated those two technologies, if you will, everything related to the rules is locked down in our state machine. So just like we're doing today, powering 1.5 million transactions in digital banking, we're able to show the actual, we call them applications internally, with every step that was taken along the way, where the member consented, the loan ID, the reason for decline, all that information is available to the compliance teams and examiners. And actually, we are beginning to build an agent that is going to create exam ready packages so that credit unions don't have to go and look around and say, I have all this information now, I've got to put it in my own package so it's exam ready. We're working on that. We're excited about that possibility to help with governance and making credit unions feel more comfortable with these decisions.
hmm And I assume that then that's also not just member facing, but the reports themselves are agency facing, regulator facing as well, which you know that they know what they're looking for, so you got to have it together. But yeah, that's super important to save time for credit unions. Absolutely, is one of the big complaints, especially from the smaller ones. You mentioned earlier, speaking of size, credit unions from 100 million to 13 billion. Is there a ideal size for a credit union that, as far as they are going to have the maximum ROI on this type of tool?
Yeah, I think that from a financial standpoint, obviously, I think the larger institutions with larger loan portfolios that are looking to grow without hiring additional staff or hiring too many additional staff, this makes a lot of sense for. I think the smaller institutions struggle because they a lot of times only have one or two people that are servicing all the loans, servicing all of the collections activity. So there's more than ROI to be considered for those
Mhm.
folks, right? And so that it might be a little bit more expensive, but when they think about the opportunity cost of not doing it, there's more to consider than whether or not the dollars make sense. And also, those are the ones that are looking to grow and scale, and it's hard to scale a loan portfolio without hiring more people. It's always been the
Yes.
way things have been done to service or collect on those loans. So I think that the impact maybe felt more in a smaller credit union, but in terms of real dollars ROI, I think as you scale up, this makes a lot of sense as well.
Yeah, and that's equally important to a smaller credit union too, is to save on other expenses. And so I always allow guests to leave with their final thoughts. What would you like to leave our credit union audience with today?
Yeah, I am so excited to watch this movement from a GUI to Louis, right? The app GUI, meaning the app screens you're clicking through, to Louis, the language user interface, where the app itself becomes secondary and the conversation is the interface. So I'm really excited to watch what's happening in digital banking because I think the future is, and I'm not the only one saying this, but instead of opening the app and finding the transfer button and picking the account and hitting confirm or finding the skip a pay button and clicking through screens, being able to say, hey, move $200 to savings or skip my auto loan payment, I think it means that the app is going to disappear behind these intelligent conversations. Unless you're looking to just see your balance, right? No one's going to
Mhm.
want to type what's my balance. It's right there on the front screen. But for anything else, I think this is where the change is going to happen. And it's going to make what we're doing, I think, even more important because having these agents do stuff, not just answer questions, is where the future is and where the impact is really felt both for the member and the credit union.
Yep, love it. Thank you so much for your time today, Catherine. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. So lovely to see you.